Joan Baez was the queen of folk music. Bob Dylan was the unknown troubadour she lifted from obscurity. Together, they became the symbol of a generation, the king and queen of the 1960s counterculture. They sang for civil rights, marched on Washington, and seemed destined to change the world together. But behind the harmonies and the public adoration, a relationship was crumbling. What happened between them was far darker than anyone knew. Now we finally know the cruel truth about Joan Baez and her love affair with Bob Dylan. A relationship built on power dynamics. In the early 1960s, two young folk singers were on a collision course that would change music history. Joan Baez was already a star. Bob Dylan was virtually unknown. Their meeting would spark one of the most significant personal and professional relationships of the 20th century. A partnership that would define an era and leave both artists forever changed by the experience. Joan Baez had risen to prominence with breathtaking speed. By 1961, she was the undisputed Queen of Folk, a title that reflected her extraordinary success and cultural influence. Her debut album on Vanguard Records had gone gold, an achievement that confirmed her status as a major commercial force in the music industry. She had graced the cover of Time magazine, a distinction that placed her among the most significant cultural figures of her generation. She was earning massive performance fees, filling Carnegie Hall, and commanding absolute respect within the commercial music industry. Her pristine soprano voice, her striking beauty, and her commitment to social justice had made her a symbol of the folk revival movement. She was the personification of the idealistic, politically conscious young artist that the early 1960s had come to celebrate. Bob Dylan's situation could not have been more different. He was a completely unknown, penniless transplant from Minnesota, couch surfing in Greenwich Village and playing for tips at small clubs. He had arrived in New York with little more than a guitar and a burning ambition to make his mark on the world. His early days in the city were marked by poverty and uncertainty, but he possessed a fierce determination that would not be denied. Early audiences perceived him as a scruffy, erratic Woody Guthrie copycat with a polarizing, harsh singing style. He was raw, unpolished, and difficult to categorize. His voice, often described as nasal and abrasive, was a far cry from the pristine folk sound that Baez had popularized. But there was something about him that drew people in, even if they could not quite explain what it was. His lyrics were dense with imagery, his presence was magnetic, and his commitment to authenticity was undeniable. They crossed paths in April 1961 at Gerda's Folk City, a music hub located in Greenwich Village, New York. Baez had been told about a terrific new singer at the venue, and she went to check him out. She was initially unimpressed by his appearance, describing him later as a scruffy little pale-faced human being. She saw a young man who seemed out of place, awkward, and not particularly charismatic. But when he performed his original Song to Woody on stage, everything changed. She was instantly transfixed, later recalling that she went completely to shreds inside because it was so beautiful. The raw emotion in his voice, the depth of the lyrics, the clear influence of Woody Guthrie that was channeled through a new and original voice, it was unlike anything she had ever heard. Dylan was already a fan of Baez's pristine soprano voice, having listened to her albums and admired her artistry. Their initial backstage conversation revolved around songwriting mechanics and old blues tracks, a meeting of two musical souls who recognized something profound in each other. Recognizing his writing genius, Baez purposefully integrated Dylan into her 1963 concert tours to expose him to her massive fan base. She was using her platform to lift him up, believing in his talent with a conviction that would prove transformative. She later recalled that she thought he was a genius from the first time she heard him. Early crowds, however, were resistant. They initially booed Dylan when Baez brought him out as a surprise guest, demanding she sing solo instead. The folk audiences of the time had come to see the Queen of Folk, not some scruffy newcomer with a harsh voice. Baez openly scolded her own audiences, insisting they sit quietly and listen to Dylan's lyrics, staking her own reputation on his talent. By late 1963, Dylan's album, The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, became a major success, and the power dynamic flipped. He rapidly evolved from her opening act into a global cultural phenomenon. The press quickly labeled them the King and Queen of Folk, transforming them into the romantic figureheads of the 1960s counterculture. They solidified this status by performing side by side at the August 1963 March on Washington, singing civil rights anthems just before Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. Professionally, they achieved massive success by merging Baez's commercial star power with Dylan's revolutionary songwriting, creating a blueprint for the decade's protest music. But behind this golden image of artistic partnership and political activism, shadows were beginning to gather. The relationship that seemed so perfect to the outside world was already showing signs of strain, and the woman who had helped launch Dylan's career was about to discover that her love for him would come at a tremendous personal cost. The shadows behind the scenes. The public image of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan as the King and Queen of Folk concealed a relationship that was far more complicated than the press ever portrayed. Behind the harmonies and the shared stages, tensions were building that would eventually tear them apart. The same artistic partnership that had produced some of the most powerful music of the decade was also a source of deep personal pain, particularly for Baez, who had invested so much of herself in Dylan's rise. What the world saw as a perfect union of talent and idealism was, in reality, a relationship fraught with ideological clashes, lifestyle differences, and the corrosive effects of fame. The ideological split between them became increasingly pronounced as the 1960s progressed. Baez was completely dedicated to active, nonviolent political resistance, pacifism, and the anti-Vietnam War movement. She saw music as a tool for social change, a weapon against injustice that could mobilize millions and force the establishment to confront its failings. Her commitment to these causes was absolute, and she expected those closest to her to share her sense of moral urgency. Dylan, however, grew intensely resentful of being labeled a protest singer or the voice of a generation, actively retreating from political movements. He had never wanted to be a spokesman for a cause, and he chafed against the expectations that came with the label. He later declared that he had never written a political song and that songs could not save the world, dismissing the very notion that music could affect meaningful change. Behind closed doors, Baez criticized Dylan for his sudden political apathy, while Dylan mocked her dedication to social causes, telling her that political activism was useless. He called politics a vacuum and a scheme in his song To Ramona, which was widely understood to be about their ideological differences. The arguments were frequent and bitter, with each side unable to understand the other's perspective. The substance use and lifestyle divergence further widened the gap between them. As Dylan's fame skyrocketed, he surrounded himself with a cynical, fast-living entourage that heavily indulged in illicit substances and alcohol. The chaos of the touring lifestyle and the illicit substance-fueled environment were a world away from the quiet, health-conscious life that Baez preferred. She maintained a straight-edged, quiet existence, making her feel completely alienated by the chaotic environment following Dylan everywhere. She later reflected that she was the only one who did not engage in substance abuse during those tours, and she could not connect with what their brains were doing. The constant presence of hangers-on, the late nights, and the excess created a sense of isolation that Baez found increasingly unbearable. She was not part of the inner circle. She was on the outside looking in, watching the man she loved become a stranger. The communication between them broke down as Dylan became increasingly paranoid, reclusive, and prone to lengthy, moody silences. His inability to communicate effectively eroded their connection as a couple. He would withdraw for days at a time, refusing to talk about his feelings or their relationship. The silences were agonizing for Baez, who craved emotional intimacy and open dialogue. She later recalled that trying to get him to talk about anything personal was like pulling teeth. The emotional distance grew with each passing month, and the couple that had once seemed so connected was now living in separate emotional worlds. Paranoia, ego, and public pressures compounded the difficulties. Dylan struggled with the reality that Baez had seen him at his lowest, creating a deep-seated ego friction where he felt the need to assert total dominance over her. She had been the one to lift him up, to share her platform, and to stake her reputation on his talent. That dynamic was not one he could easily accept, as his own fame eclipsed hers. He needed to be the star, the one in control, and Baez's presence reminded him of a time when he was dependent on her. Fans and obsessive media stalked their every move, forcing them to hide out at the Bearsville Theater complex and the home of manager Albert Grossman in Woodstock, New York. The constant pressure cooker of staying relevant while maintaining a manufactured public image turned their private romance into a toxic competitive rivalry. The same press that had celebrated them as the king and queen of folk was now documenting every crack in their relationship, feeding the very tensions that were destroying them. By 1965, the relationship had reached a breaking point. Dylan's first UK tour that year would put a fatal strain on their bond, killing the unique blend of artistic respect and personal affection that had defined their partnership. The tour, documented in Don't Look Back, would capture the coldness that had crept into their interactions, revealing a couple that was already emotionally separated even as they performed together. The shadows behind the scenes had grown too dark, and the love that had once seemed so powerful was now on the verge of collapse. The 1965 UK tour and emotional coldness. In the spring of 1965, Bob Dylan invited Joan Baez to join him on his highly anticipated tour of England. For Baez, the invitation carried a clear expectation. She believed they would perform their usual duets, view the trip as a joint adventure, and recreate the shared stage dynamic that had defined their relationship in America. She accepted the invitation with enthusiasm, looking forward to a time of artistic collaboration and personal connection. The prospect of traveling to England with Dylan, of sharing stages and creating music together, seemed like a continuation of the partnership that had defined both of their careers. She had no reason to suspect that the tour would become one of the most painful experiences of her life. Upon arriving in London, however, Baez quickly discovered the truth. She was never formally booked on the tour itinerary and had been completely omitted from the ticket sales. The tour was Dylan's show, and she was merely an observer. The realization was jarring, and it set the tone for what would become an emotionally devastating experience. The man who had once been her opening act, who had depended on her platform to reach a wider audience, was now excluding her entirely. The power dynamic that had shifted so dramatically over the previous years was now on full display, and Baez was on the losing side. Throughout the multi-city UK tour, Dylan never once invited Baez on stage to perform a single song with him. She was relegated to the role of a passive accessory, present only as a companion rather than a collaborator. The audiences who had come to see the King of Folk had no idea that the Queen was sitting backstage, waiting for an invitation that would never come. Dylan's inner circle, including road manager Bob Newworth, actively ignored her, leaving her sitting alone in hotel rooms while the tour moved around her. The isolation was complete and deeply humiliating. She had traveled across the Atlantic to be with him, and he could not even be bothered to acknowledge her presence on stage. Filmmaker D.A. Pennebaker captured this raw emotional cruelty in his documentary Don't Look Back, filming scenes where Dylan openly mocks Baez's music while she sits inches away. The footage is painful to watch, revealing a man who had become cold and dismissive toward the woman who had once been his greatest champion. In one particularly cruel moment, Dylan is filmed singing a mocking version of Baez's song, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, deriding her earnest delivery and her commitment to social justice. Baez later recalled that she just sort of trotted around, wondering why Bob wouldn't invite her on stage, feeling very sorry for herself and getting very neurotic. The emotional toll of the tour was immense, and she found herself questioning everything she had believed about their relationship. The base of operations at London's Savoy Hotel became a toxic space filled with terrible habits and heavy substance use. Dylan was already living at New York's Chelsea Hotel with Sarah Lowndes, whom he would marry later that year, a fact that Baez was aware of but chose to ignore. Adding to the blur was Dylan's substance use, which kept him and his entourage in a perpetual state of high energy. Marianne Faithfull, part of the ever-changing cast of characters in Dylan's suite, recalled that every 5 minutes or so, someone would go into the bathroom and come out speaking in strange languages. The scene was chaotic, frenetic, and utterly alienating for Baez, who did not use illicit substances and felt completely outside the circle of crazy-making people. She was a sober observer in a world of excess, and the isolation was crushing. Dylan openly prioritized the company of high society figures and other women right in front of Baez, treating her presence as a drag on his new rock star persona. She was no longer the woman he had once admired. She was a reminder of a past he was desperate to escape. The public snubs, the private dismissals, and the constant emotional cruelty became unbearable. Deeply hurt by his emotional coldness and realizing she was merely being used as a passive accessory, Baez packed her bags midway through the tour and flew back to America alone. The decision to leave was not easy, but it was necessary. She had given so much to Dylan, and he had repaid her with indifference. The tour put a fatal strain on their relationship, killing the unique blend of artistic respect and personal affection that had defined their bond. The woman who had once helped launch Dylan's career was now discarded, left to wonder what had gone wrong. She had believed in him when no one else did, had staked her reputation on his talent, and had loved him with a devotion that he could not reciprocate. The experience left her scarred, but it also gave her a clarity that she would carry with her for the rest of her life. The worst was yet to come. A secret betrayal would soon be revealed, one that would confirm Baez's worst fears about the man she had loved and finally give her the courage to walk away for good. The secret betrayal and marriage. The 1965 UK tour had been devastating enough for Joan Baez. She had traveled across the Atlantic expecting to share stages and create music with the man she loved, only to be ignored, mocked, and ultimately discarded. She returned to America alone and emotionally battered, but the worst was yet to come. While Dylan was maintaining his complex romantic and professional ties with Baez throughout 1964 and 1965, he was secretly living a double life with model Sarah Lowndes. Dylan deliberately kept Lowndes completely hidden from the folk music scene, ensuring Baez and the public had no idea she existed. The compartmentalization was deliberate and calculated. He was able to maintain his public relationship with Baez while privately building a life with another woman. The deception was complete, and the woman who had given so much of herself to Dylan had no idea that she was being played for a fool. On November 22, 1965, just months after Baez had fled London, Bob Dylan secretly married Sarah Lowndes during a private, low-key civil ceremony. Only a tiny handful of people, including manager Albert Grossman, were informed of the wedding. The ceremony took place without the knowledge of the press or his closest musical peers. Dylan completely denied the marriage to journalists for months after the ceremony took place, maintaining the fiction that he was still a free man. The secrecy was absolute, and the public had no idea that the king of folk had quietly married his queen. Baez discovered the marriage long after the fact through mutual Greenwich Village acquaintances, who also revealed that Lowndes was already pregnant with Dylan's child. The news came as a devastating shock. In her 1987 autobiography, And a Voice to Sing With, Baez detailed the severe emotional shock of this discovery, realizing that Dylan's entire emotional availability during the end of their relationship had been an absolute lie. She had been waiting for him, hoping that he would come back to her. She had believed that their connection was real, that the love they had shared was authentic. But the truth was that he had moved on long before she had accepted it. The secret marriage had been a calculated act of betrayal, one that left Baez feeling used and discarded. She had given Dylan her platform, her reputation, and her heart. He had taken everything she had to offer and then married another woman without even telling her. The sense of betrayal was profound, and it colored the way she viewed their entire relationship. She later wrote that his marriage to Sarah Lowndes, whom he would have 4 children with, told her all she needed to know. She reflected that the future looked different and that she had to abandon any idea of a life with him. The discovery of the marriage marked a turning point in Baez's life. She had spent years waiting for Dylan, believing that their connection was something special. but the betrayal forced her to confront the reality of their relationship. He had used her, discarded her, and moved on without a backward glance. The realization was painful, but it also gave her the clarity she needed to finally let go. The secret wedding had been the final betrayal. It sealed the end of their relationship forever. The aftermath of the betrayal was devastating. Baez struggled to make sense of what had happened, to understand how someone she had loved so deeply could treat her so cruelly. But she eventually found the strength to move forward, using her music to process the pain and to heal. She channeled her heartbreak into her work, turning her suffering into art. Her 1968 album, Any Day Now, was filled with Dylan covers, a testament to the complexity of her feelings for the man who had broken her heart. She later reflected that she had to accept that he had moved on to something else. The secret marriage had been the final betrayal, and it set the stage for the long and complicated aftermath of their relationship. Musical warfare, rolling thunder, and final fallouts. The end of Joan Baez's and Bob Dylan's romantic relationship did not mark the end of their complicated connection. Over the years that followed, their artistic and personal tensions played out in song lyrics, tour dynamics, and public confrontations. What had once been a partnership based on mutual admiration and shared stages became a battlefield of competing narratives and unresolved grievances. Both artists used their music to process the pain and to assert their versions of the truth, turning their personal history into public art. Dylan penned songs like To Ramona and Visions of Johanna, which music historians interpret as critiques of Baez's rigid political morality and their incompatibility. To Ramona, written during a time when Dylan was moving away from his folk beginnings, paints a picture of two lovers going in opposite directions. In the song, Dylan sings about politics being a vacuum and a scheme, a direct critique of Baez's dedication to political activism. He also referenced Baez with the line about Madonna still not having shone, a nod to her moniker as the Barefoot Madonna. The lyrics were a clear rejection of the political idealism that had once defined their partnership, and they stung deeply. Baez responded in 1975 with her definitive hit Diamonds and Rust, directly addressing her unresolved feelings about Dylan. The song is one of her most enduring works, a masterful blend of regret, anger, and lingering affection. The lyrics contain hyper-specific historical markers: a late-night phone call from Dylan from a Midwest phone booth, his harsh critique that her poetry was lousy, and memories of their time in a crummy hotel over Washington Square. She sings about buying him cufflinks and asks where he is calling from, a booth in the Midwest. The specificity of the details gives the song an authenticity that resonates with anyone who has experienced a painful breakup. It was a top 40 hit and remains regarded as one of her best compositions, a testament to her ability to turn personal pain into powerful art. 10 years after their painful split, Dylan unexpectedly called Baez out of the blue, inviting her to join his theatrical traveling caravan tour, the Rolling Thunder Revue. The invitation came as a surprise, and Baez accepted, hoping that time had healed some of the wounds between them. The first tour in 1975 was fun and beautiful, with scarves and flowers, and Baez went out every night to watch Dylan's set. Martin Scorsese's documentary Rolling Thunder Revue showcases archival footage of their interactions, revealing a tension that was still simmering beneath the surface. In one scene, Dylan suggests they might have stayed together if Baez hadn't married David Harris. Baez shoots him down, reminding him that he secretly married Sarah Lowndes first. The confrontation was captured on camera, a raw moment of unresolved conflict that revealed just how deep the wounds still ran. In 1984, Dylan and Baez agreed to a joint, co-headlining summer tour of Europe. Promoters heavily leveraged Baez's name and likeness to sell stadium tickets, promising equal billing and nightly closing duets. The tour was supposed to be a reconciliation, a chance for the two former lovers to share stages and create music together once again. But the reality was far different. Once the tour started, Dylan's management systematically pushed Baez down the billing, shortened her stage times, and abruptly canceled the promised duets. They only performed together a couple of times before the invites stopped. The corporate sabotage was a bitter reminder of the power dynamics that had always defined their relationship. Baez quit the tour in Copenhagen, kissing Dylan's sweaty forehead and walking out. The two completely severed ties and have reportedly never spoken or met in person since that year. In 2009, Dylan offered a rare public apology in the PBS American Masters documentary Joan Baez, How Sweet the Sound. He stated he deeply regretted how he treated her and admitted he acted out of a desire to protect her from the madness of his sudden fame. It was a moment of genuine contrition, an acknowledgement that he had wronged her in ways that could never be fully repaired. Decades later, while preparing for her 2023 documentary, Joan Baez, I Am a Noise, Baez spent weeks painting a portrait of Dylan as a young man while listening to his old records. The artistic process became a form of therapy, a way to finally process the decades of pain and resentment. She told Mojo magazine that she put his music on and any remaining resentment evaporated. She sent him a letter confirming she harbored no more resentment, bringing a peaceful independence close to their turbulent history. The forgiveness she offered was not for him, she explained, but for herself. She needed to let go of the weight she had been carrying for decades. The story of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan is ultimately one of two extraordinary artists who found each other at a pivotal moment in history, changed each other's lives, and then went their separate ways. Their relationship was marked by passion, pain, betrayal, and ultimately forgiveness. The music they created, both together and apart, remains a testament to the power of art to transform personal suffering into something universal. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates.